Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 40 of the In the 11 podcast, hosted by myself, Brendan Griffiths. Today, we have a great conversation for you coming up soon here with Federico. He kind of tells his story of his career, speaks about his time in Australia, his time in Samoa, playing in the States, some coaching, a trial in Bulgaria. That's crazy. And I think it's another great podcast that you guys can learn a lot from. Every player is different. Every player has a different path with how they made it to the pro game or how they stayed in the pro game. And Betty's no different and gives a lot of great stories and some good insight into how to get to that level and stay at that level. And I hope that you guys really enjoy this episode. If you haven't picked up your mystery sport kit yet, make sure that you go and do that. Use code INDIE11 at checkout. Go over to mysterysport.co to get your kit. If you saw episode 39, you saw the Roma kit that they sent me. It is dope. Make sure if you want to get one just like that, then go over to Mystery Sport, use code INDIE11 and get yourself an authentic kit. Without further ado, let's kick it over to the episode. Let's kick it over to Fede and myself. And thank you so much for listening. All right. So here we are, another player on the podcast. Super excited to get into this episode 40 of the In the 11 podcast with Fede Diaz. Federico Diaz has a tremendous amount of experience playing both the United States and abroad. So I can't wait to get into some of his career and some of his story so far. So first of all, thank you so much for being on today.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's get right into it if you don't mind. And I know I wanted to get a little bit of backstory on you and your career. And I noticed you said that you played in college for a bit, but then you decided to leave early and pursue a career professionally. And I was speaking to a lot of different players that I've had on this show and also just in the soccer world, I've noticed a mix of a lot of players that kind of leave early and have a lot of success with it, and some that stay for the whole 4 years of their experience. What were you feeling that made you decide, okay, this is the right time for me to step away from college and really go for this full blown?
So for me, the thing was, I'm Hispanic. My parents are from Uruguay. I'm Uruguayan American. And as any person who's listening to this who's Hispanic, a lot of parents love education. So for me, it was more of like, I was not forced, but it was like, look, you want to play soccer or football, you got to go to school, and I was in high school. I was a 3-year varsity letterman at my high school, and I was a forward at that time. And I used to tell myself, I want to play pro, or I want to try. So I went to college. I went to a small school, which at first, let's tell you that at first, I was told we were going to play NCAA Division III. Mm-hmm. So when I get to the school, it was a brand new program, whatever. And the coach says to us, oh, yeah, so by the way, we're going to play in the USCAA. Half of us looked at each other and we're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
So we're like, what the hell is that? So whatever, pretty much like what the league entitles of is like you play a lot of like satellite schools from like Penn State and a lot of tiny like Christian schools and things like that.
Yeah.
So competition was decent. It wasn't bad. But I mean, if I was going to go to college, I wanted to go at least NCAA.
Yeah.
So I went my first year, and the coach literally said to me, he's like, oh, you're not a striker anymore. You're going to be a center back. I looked at him. I'm like, the hell's that? Like, what's a center back? Like,
yeah.
my whole life I played forward, winger, whatever. And, in my mind, I'm like, you know what? Like, whatever. My goal is just to play a little bit of college, get an education, and then just try to find a team. So did the first year, whatever. I didn't like it. I had problems with the coach because I always argued that I didn't want to play center back. I wanted to play somewhere else. So he moved me into defensive mid, ended up scoring like 2 or 3 goals that season. Wasn't happy. I wanted to move, but, I was like, you know what, whatever. Stayed on for the second following year. And again, same thing. Wanted me to play center back. Center back was forcing me. I said, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna play. But on the side, I was trying to message players or people that I knew that are playing overseas, and messaging, like teams and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And I figured, you know what? I'm like, best place to go is just go to my parents' country. So I contacted my uncle, and my uncle's like, yeah, listen, like we can bring you in to train with like a couple second division teams, and if you make it, you'll sign. My goal really was though on behind my head was that I wanted to go because my grandfather was sick. So I wanted to see my grandfather because Uruguay's kind of far. So
Yeah.
I can't go all the time. And my thing was that I wanted to at least try to play and make it, so then my grandfather can see me make it, because that was his thing. Like he always called, he always asked how how my games were, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my grandfather loved football, was a huge fan, and he always wanted me to make it. So I think it was like fall of 2010. I had already set everything to leave to Uruguay. I was going to finish this season, and then in the wintertime, I was going to dip. I think we were going to a game in Pittsburgh. I think it was. We were on the bus, and my mom calls me. She's like, "Hey, listen, I know you're getting ready to go to a game, and I don't want to ruin your day." She's like, "But your grandfather died." I was like, "Oh, God damn!" I was like, "Damn!" So that day, I literally played 20 minutes, and not to sound cocky, but I'm a pretty tough guy. I don't really cry or anything like that. I don't really show emotion sometimes. But man, that day just
I can't
busted
even
out.
imagine.
Yeah, I just busted, tears on the field. And I told the coach, I was like, man, I can't play, man. My grandfather died. He's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So I came off, and the rest of the season, I just didn't really care. Like, I didn't want to be there. I just didn't like the school. I didn't like the soccer. I didn't like anything. So I was focused on going to Uruguay. And then, the wintertime came, and I said, you know what, like at this point, I don't want to go. Like the point was for me was to just go see my grandfather. So I made the tough decision and kind of broke my parents' heart. But I was like, hey, listen, I'm dropping out of school. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to try to play pro. I know the chances of making it are very, very slim. I was like, you know what? Like, I want to try it.
Yeah.
My dad played soccer. He played in Argentina. He played in Uruguay as well. He played in the third division in Argentina and in Uruguay. So my dad knows how it is, and especially in those countries, like he knows, like you get paid peanuts, and sometimes you don't even get paid. Like they take like 7 months just to give you like $200. So he knows. So he understood where I was coming from.
So you still wound up choosing to go to Uruguay after that series?
No, I didn't. So I didn't.
Okay.
So I just dropped out of school, and then I didn't know what to do. So I started looking up like pro teams around the area. Like I knew the Red Bulls were around, or the Metro Stars at that time, whatever. And that was the closest team, either that or DC United. So I figured, I was like, all right, you know what? Let me go try out for one of these like academy teams. So I had dropped out of school, and it was like what, it was 2010 and no, 2011. It was the winter of 2011. And I go and I start training with the Red Bulls Academy U17s or U18s. I forgot what it was. And they did a round of tryouts, right? So you didn't have to pay for anything, which was good at that time. You didn't have to pay. So it was me and this other kid from around the area, and we're both strikers. And we're going to Giant Stadium, or MetLife now, because they used to play there. We're training, we're busting our asses. And I mean, we're working hard. We're training with the other guys on the team. And we go for like a month. And at the end of the month, the coach goes, yeah, listen, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming for these last couple of weeks. But listen, we're looking for defenders. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I look at my dad, and my dad literally says to me in Spanish, he's like, that was the biggest waste of time. And I was like, yeah, I literally wasted a whole month driving 40 minutes to Giant Stadium, to train for nothing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, but now, like all these years later, of all the trials you've had, of all the teams that you've played with, now is that almost like foreshadowing for some of the things that you have now seen, like in going to trials and stuff like that? Because you hear stories like that all the time.
Absolutely.
Like you're brought in, and you might be the best player on the park by far, and then they're like, actually, we're only looking for a left back. And you're like, okay, well, why was I just here for the past week and a half or 2 weeks, or anything like that? So I'm sure that was.
You probably know
at the time, but yeah.
You probably know as well. And it's like, and like the thing for me is like, if you're gonna advertise tryouts, right? Like I'm not big on open tryouts. To be honest with you, I hate open tryouts. I think they're a big waste of money. Unless, and I will say this, if it's a brand new club, like a brand new club, that's fine. That's different. But when it's a team that's been in the USL or, you know, whatever for like 20 years, nah, there's no point in going to try out for that. Like either you know somebody or get a connection and go, but don't do open tryouts because those $200 are literally going to get paid to the players next week. That's just how it is. Unfortunately, like it's the honest truth.
No, you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, man, I was literally just trying out. So then my next angle was like, all right, what do I do next? I'm like, how do I get myself involved with pro clubs? I was like, because this is an academy. So I literally was like, all right, if that doesn't work, I'm going to reach out to the DC United Academy. And you know what? My dad's like, look, because I didn't drive at the time. And to be honest, Joe, I didn't drive till I was like 20 because I was scared of driving. And my dad goes, man, I'm telling you right now, he's like, I am not driving you 4 hours to Washington. I'm like, all right. I was like, I'll take a train.
That's fair.
I was like, I'll take a train. I'll take a train. I'll do anything. My mom's like, no, are you stupid? Like, no, like you are literally 17, 18 years old. You're not taking a damn bus to Washington. I was like, okay, whatever. So I'm like, all right, I gotta find somewhere like clubs. So I started looking for clubs, whatever, on the internet, Google, you know, the usual, the biggest help that we have. And I started finding out about the USL. Like I never even knew what the USL was. And that year, this team FC New York was coming into the league, and then we're having open tryouts at Hofstra University. So I'm like, all right, hour and a half drive. I was like, I can probably take a train there. I was like, maybe somebody dropped me off. So I pay it was like $175 to try out. And I go, and it was like 100 or 200 people there, and I'm like mind blown. I'm like, wow,
classic open tryout vibe.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, what the heck is this? Like, there's so many people here. Whatever. I see the nice turf field. I'm like, nice, man. I was like, I've never been on a field like that. They're like, oh, don't worry, we're training on the crappy grass field. I was like, oh, so bad. Like, I mean, muddy, everything. So, like, obviously, like, there was probably pros there, and I'm assuming there was. I wasn't really sure at the time. And just the tryouts, like, man, I'm there, and I'm like, look, like, I'm be honest with you. If I look back all those years, was I ready to play pro? Hell no. I definitely wasn't. But, you know, you try. And I go and I'm there and I see people in like basketball shorts, jean shorts, boots. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I've never seen it, like a team with like these kind of like players. So whatever. Even my sister had given me a ride for the first trial, and she goes, why the heck are there like construction workers here? And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know what this is. I was like, well, whatever. Obviously, you know, I did the 2-day trial, didn't make it, didn't get selected, whatever. So next, you know, a couple months went on, and I went to Harrisburg City Islanders, tried out there. And that was like my first experience as in a professional like tryout that I played as a defender. So they put me in a right back. I did pretty well. And the coach at the time, which I mean, a lot of people know he's not the greatest of guys, but he's like, you know, yeah, you did well, you know, but you're not what we're looking for. All right, whatever. So I'm like, you know what? I need to literally take a step back. I need to find something. I need to, you know, do something in my life because I'm not working. I'm not doing anything. So I literally said, you know what? I'm gonna work, gain some money, and try to contact people and go somewhere else. So I got a job.
I'm curious. So I'm sorry to cut you off there, but I'm curious, like how you say, looking back on it now, you realize, okay, maybe I wasn't ready for the pro level at that age.
Not at all.
What kind of advice would you give to somebody who, you know, is around that same age, 17, 18, 19, maybe they're in college or maybe they're in high school or academy or whatever, you know, they're kind of balancing that decision of what's the next step for me? Like, is it for you? Do you feel like it's more, if you just want to play, then you should pursue it no matter what? Or do you think there's also a balance to that of maybe trying to be fully ready from a playing perspective, right? From a actual ability level.
So for me, what I learned throughout the years is that it doesn't matter. No, actually, let me rephrase that. There's a level for everyone. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can play pro, and like, this is the thing that I have arguments with people about, because, you know, you're always going to have people who criticize what you do. You know, always. You're always going to have haters, and you're always going to have people who support you. But the haters are always the ones who are like, oh, like, you're not really a pro because you're playing in like 3rd division or 4th division. Well, in my eyes, if I signed a piece of paper that's telling me I'm getting X amount of money per week, I'm a professional. Now, it may not be lavish money, but I'm still a professional. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like I've had this conversation with a kid the other day. He was like, "Hey, coach, listen, I want to go play pro. What do you think I should do?" And I told him, I was like, "Listen, do you think you can compete with guys in the USL right now at your age, your skill level? Do you think you can compete with guys?" And he's like, "I don't know." I was like, "Okay, this is what we're gonna do." I was like, "When you come back Wednesday, I was like, I want you to watch some USL highlights." And I literally told him straight, I was like, "You know who you should watch? Go watch Matt Sheldon. Become Elite." I was like, "Become Elite." He does match analysis all the time, right? He's a right back. I'm like, "You're a right winger. You guys can kind of relate." I was like, "Tell me if you can compete there." So he comes back next training session. He goes, "Coach, there's no way I can compete there." And I was like, "Okay, there you go." I was like, "So you watch those videos and see what you need to work on." I was like, "Now I'm not saying you can't compete anywhere, but you need to find a level."
Yeah.
So I gave him an example. I was like, "Look, listen." I was like, there's a lot of good semi-pro leagues in the world, and I was like, "Why don't you just take your chance to go to Australia or go to New Zealand?" And he's like, "You think so?" I'm like, "Well, it's up to you. What do you want to do in life? Do you want to play? Do you want to study? Do you want to work?" He goes, "No, no, I want to play." Okay. So I'm like, "Look, I can give you some context. I can recommend you some here." So I think next month he's gonna head out to Australia to give it a shot. But why? Because it's I'm not saying that Australian football is poor, because we'll get to that eventually, but
Mm.
it's not poor. It's just that it's not fully professional unless you play in the A League. So you're literally a semi-pro player and you can grow as a player, you know? And a lot of kids, that's a problem nowadays. A lot of kids think, "Oh, I'm 16, 17 years old. Oh, I play for, I don't know, DC United's academy, or I play for New York City FC's academy. I can make it pro." Some can, yeah, definitely. I'm not gonna lie to you, because like that's the difference between when we were younger and to what they are. They have better resources, they're better players, they're smarter players,
Yep.
but sometimes they're not really realistic with themselves. They get put into first team training and they get destroyed, and then they're like, "Well, I don't know, like I had a bad day," or blah blah blah. Like they're not really realistic with themselves, you know. And that's the thing. Like sometimes kids are like, they think too big, or they expect things to be given to them, and it ain't like that, you know. So that's just my opinion on it. Obviously, you know, different people are going to give kids opinion about it, but that's just how I think about it.
No, but you bring up a good point, because I've always thought about it kind of the same way, you know, like if somebody, like I picture it like this, right? If somebody asks you what you do for a living, and let's say like you're an intern at a company, like you might not be making money, or you said be making peanuts, but you would still say what you do for a profession is like you work for that company as whatever that role is, right? So it's like
Exactly.
in places where you're in a different country, maybe, or in a lower league where maybe you're only really being provided food and housing, like that's your payment, or food and housing and a little bit of money, whatever the case is, you would still consider yourself, this is what I do for a living, right? You know, this is what I do day in and day out, regardless of what the income is. That doesn't necessarily determine whether it's professional or not. Obviously, you know, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty and the particulars, yes, there's only a certain number of leagues in each country that are determined by FIFA as fully professional, sure. But like you do make a good point. There is a level there for everyone, right? Like you hear
Exactly.
stories, or I've, you know, talked to players before, like you go to Germany and like you find certain teams in the fourth, fifth, sixth division, like you can make money. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
you can make more money than some USL players make, or some low level MLS players, I imagine even. But it's all about like, and you'll I'm sure speak to this as well, it's more so about different clubs almost than
Mhm.
necessarily whatever the league is or whatever the level is. But I do think that's a good piece of advice to younger players, is like you have to kind of figure out where your level is and maybe change up what your idea necessarily is of pro, right?
Yeah, like we have, like on my team now, right? On my EPSL club, I have a kid who played. I think he played with you maybe at Darmstadt. I don't know if you know Joseph Nastu.
Yeah, I
Okay.
do.
So he plays with me, and he's a great little player. He's great. Yeah. So like he, you know, we were talking about this the other day after training. We were just sitting there, you know, after practice, and he was like, "Hey, listen, I played in Darmstadt," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "That's what, Kreisliga? You know, it's like sixth, seventh division." Now, someone else looks at that and they're like, "Oh, dude, like, you know, you played in seventh division, blah blah blah." But like you can say it from experience, like even sixth or seventh division in Germany, it's super competitive. You know what I'm saying? And if you can't compete there, like what are the chances of you to make an Oberliga? What are the chances of you making a Regionalliga? It's tough. It's hard, you know? And like I tell him all the time, I'm like, dude, you're a good little player. Like you could definitely play regional league. You could definitely play higher. But he's like, yeah, he's like, he's like, it's just I don't have the opportunities, blah blah blah. And he was just saying something like how he wants to go to Romania because he has a Romanian passport. And I was like, dude, do it. I was like, don't sleep on it. I was like, you're young, do it. You have the opportunity, go. I'm like, if I was 21 and some European team was like, hey, listen, we'll give you a couch and some food and like $300, I'm going. I'm not even thinking twice about it. And that's what I tell him. I'm like, he's a good little player, and he went to a very low level, but he realized like, all right, that's not the level for me. I could definitely play better. So you always have to like realize that there's always a level for someone, always a level to play, to continue your career. Because that's the thing. A lot of people think big, too big sometimes. And when they don't make it big time, that's when they're like, oh, you know what? I'm done. I'm not playing anymore. I'm not pursuing this anymore. Screw this. Like, blah, blah, blah. I was unlucky. It's not about lucky. It's about literally looking for the opportunities or just looking to continue to play. And you can literally find a level anywhere in the world. Even here in America. Like here in America, a lot of times, yeah, we get bad rep because we don't have promotion and relegation. We have like 45 million leagues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you can go to a UPSL team and make a decent career. Like you can be a coach at a UPSL club, and that can be your payment. You could go to like an MPSL club. There's some professional MPSL clubs. There's some professional USL League Two clubs. It might not be a lot of money, but you're still a professional. You're still making money, and you're living as a pro. The problem, that's the thing. A lot of times guys think, oh, I need to live as a pro. I need, a super hot model girlfriend, or I need a super fast car. No, it's not like that. They just need to find a level for themselves or where they think they can currently compete. And then that's where they get started. You can always work your way up. There's no way you can work your way down. So that's something too.
Yeah, it's kind of like the thing I always hear, and I kind of agree with it too, is like once you start playing, you just kind of have to. It's almost like, if you like are dropping a tennis ball, it's like you just kind of got to keep the ball up in the air. You know what I mean? Like just keep finding a team, find somewhere to like play for a little bit and keep it up. You know what I mean? Because you never know. Like, yes, it's rare occasions when people play in the lower leagues and then make it up to the highest level, but it does happen. And even if you don't necessarily make it to the highest level, you might never reach your full potential at the level you want to get to if you don't kind of do those types of things that we're talking about. Find a level where you can get a little bit of time in, master that, like master the things that you need to work on, your weaknesses, your strengths, and then take a baby step up to another level, right? And then try and fit into that level. It's kind of like, just climbing the ladder a little bit at a time. And
absolutely,
if you can find a place to start, you can find a rung where you can get on at the bottom of the ladder, then that's all you really need.
It's true. That's how it is, man. It's like, because football is just, that's how it works, unfortunately. There's no like literally, I mean, how can I put it? Like, you won't never ever make it to the top without like eating crap first. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're always gonna eat crap first and then make your way up to the highest level you can.
Yeah. But so I know you mentioned Australia before. Was that kind of the first, Australia and New Zealand? Was that the first stop on your journey of really playing?
Yeah, so before I did all that, I had went on trial in England. So what I was playing for like a Sunday league team here, and we ended up playing some team out by the city, and we spanked them like 8-9-0. And English guy comes up to me, he goes, "Oh, listen, mate, you're a good little footballer. Like, I have a connection in England. Would you be interested?" And I was like, I wasn't doing anything. I was working. I was like, yeah, let's freaking go. Let's do it. So he gives me his number, and I contact him in a couple. Like, he's like, just contact me in a couple of days. I message him in a couple of days, and he goes, "Hey, listen, it's all set up. Just send me like $45." He's like, just to like pay, look like, I was like, okay, fine, $45, not a big deal. He said, "Listen, we'll help you get a hotel over there, and just go to the tryout." So I fly over there, and the tryout was supposed to be with Ketchingtown FC. So at that time, they were in the conference premiere. And I go to the hotel. I mean, I land in London. I had to take like 3 buses just to get where I was going. I land at the hotel, which was next to like a non-league club, like a little small club called Wellington Town. And he goes, "You're gonna go try out on Saturday." Okay, it's fine, no big deal. So I go to Saturday, and I was like, "Oh, where am I going?" He goes, "You're gonna go to the old Rushden and Diamond Stadium." All right, fair enough. So me and some other kid that was playing on the Sunday league team, we went together, and we go, and we get a taxi, and we go to the stadium. We get dropped off, and I see like mad people coming in, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" So we go into like to check in, whatever, and it's like some like showcase thing called Football CV. Never heard of it. Never knew what the hell this was, and I'm like, "What is this?" Whatever. Sign in, give our name. He's like, "All right, yeah, go to the locker room, et cetera, et cetera." We sit in there, and all the English people are like, "Oh, where are you from, mate? Oh, you a Yank?" Like making fun of me and stuff like that. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm Yankee. "Oh, where are you from? You from New York?" I'm like, yeah, like I'm from New York, like because you tell them New Jersey, no one knows where the hell New Jersey is. Like, where the hell is that? I'm like, yeah, I'm from New York, bro. I'm from New York. So I'm sitting there, and one of the guys goes, "Mate, you've come a long way for 45 minutes. And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you didn't know?" He's like, "You're only going to play 45 minutes. And I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" So pretty much what happened was this guy's connection was some company called Football CV. So he sent us there. He signed us up, and that was the $45. He signed us up for this combine. So we flew out there.
You have to pay to fly in your hotel and all that?
No, I didn't pay for the hotel. So I don't know what he did. So he just told me, "Go to the hotel. It's all good." But we did buy our flight, which was like a couple $100 to go to England. Yeah. And we go and what he did was he signed us up for this Football CV combine. It was $45. And yeah, the guys were right. It was 45 minutes. So we go out for the first 45, and I go and I'm playing right wing back. I had never played right wing back in my life. It is the most running I've ever done. I'm dying about 30 minutes in. And it's the same thing as here. You get like either really, really good level footballers, or you get really, really low level footballers. It's just whoever pays the $45 can go. So I had a decent 45 minutes. I actually almost scored a volley, almost put it in the top corner, and missed it by like this much. And I had one of the coaches come up to me, and he was like, "Hey, listen, like, you can come train with us, blah, blah, blah." And it was the Kettering Town coach. I was like, "Oh, word." So I did good enough. My buddy, same thing. He played well enough that we were both going to go. And we had to walk back after that. So we had to walk back, and it was a 3-hour walk from the stadium to our hotel. And mind you, people think that England isn't very green. It's super green. Like, it is open land. Like, there's no tomorrow. And
you're not in the big cities, yeah.
No, it's super green, man. And like, it's like completely different from here. So like, we're literally walking through like grass fields and stuff like that. And we ended up getting back to our hotel, and we get a phone call the next morning, and the coach goes, "Hey, listen, we just entered administration. So right now we're not going to be able to bring any more players. We're going to have to sell all our players, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." Because the problem was they had brought in a lot of Real Madrid C players. Because I don't know if anybody knows, but Real Madrid has 2 reserve teams. They have their B team and their C team. So they had brought in a lot of guys from Real Madrid C, and I guess they were losing too much money and all this stuff, and they had to go into administration, and they ended up dropping down to like the 8th or 9th tier. So me and my buddy just came back home. And then as the years went on, obviously, I ended up going to soccer visa a couple times. I met Joe, and did all his combines, whatever. And there was one that really, really got to me, and that was before I went to Australia. And he was told this story so many times, but like, it hit me. It really got into me. And I was like, you know what, man? Like, I'm going to go home and just email everyone. Everyone I find, I'm going to go email, like, whoever I find, and I'm going to email. So I literally, Brendan, I'm not even BSing you. I literally sat at my mom's computer for maybe, I don't know, 7-8 hours that night. And I emailed teams in Norway, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand. I don't even know. I can't even remember. And I'm telling you, and I told this to somebody else the other day, I sent over 2,000 emails, at least 2,000 emails. And you know how many answers I got back?
Probably like 10.
4. 4, dude. 4.
I always say this because like there's players I've had and that I've done something similar to that, and they have as well. Like, I'm always shocked that I didn't get an email one day like from like Gmail being like, dude, like your account is just spam. Like we got to shut this down. Like why are
Yeah,
you sending 1,000 emails a day to like clubs in Bulgaria or something? It's
I had like Hotmail tell me one day like, oh, like the mail recipient, because he got too many emails, and I'm like, crap. I'm like, I really wanted that one to go through. So I'm like forcing it, and Hotmail's like, dude, stop. Like literally stop sending. It's not gonna go in. I'm like, all right. But yeah, I got 4 emails, man. And the one that was really, really interested in me was a team called Papatui AFC from New Zealand. They had played at that time. They were in the Lotto Division 1. So the way it works in New Zealand is that they have winter leagues. So they have their first division, which is the ISB Premiership, and then they have their winter league, which is the Lotto Premier League, and then it's Division 1, Division 2, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this guy, coach name was Mark Holt, super interested. He's like, yeah, mate, listen, you look like a good little player. I would love to have you here, blah, blah. I can get you a job. I can get you an apartment. I can get you some money. And I was like, word, you know what? This is the first time I actually have real interest. Like, I'm not going to blow this.
Yeah.
So he sends me the contract, it's like 3 or 4 pieces of paper. And obviously this is the first contract I'm ever going to sign. So I'm like super duper excited. And I'm about to sign it, and I get another email. That night, and it was a team from Australia, and they were super interested as well. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, all right, well, Australia is a bigger continent. New Zealand's pretty small. I'm like, well, what do I do? So I had a friend out in England, and I sent him a message. I was like, hey, I need your help. He goes, yeah, what's up? Like, listen, I got an opportunity in New Zealand, and I got an opportunity in Australia. I was like, what do you think should I do? So I tell him what leagues they're in. He goes, honestly, he's like, go to Australia. He's like, it's a bigger country, more opportunities. They play in the Asian, federation. He's like, so you can easily move on somewhere else in Asia. He's like, compared to New Zealand, where unfortunately they're on the OFC, and there's no way you can move there unless you move to Australia. So I was like, all right, that's fine. So I call the coach from New Zealand. I tell him, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm not going to sign. And he was really, really upset. Like, I mean, I think he's like, he was in tears when I cried. I'm like, it was bad. Like, it was like, oh, like, mate, come on. Like, and I was like, yeah, I just got to do what I think is right. So I talked to the coach in Australia. I told him, hey, listen, I'm in. I'm ready to go. What can we work out? And he's like, all right, listen, we can pay you this much. We can give you this. We can give you that. And I was like, you know what? Perfect. So I headed out to Australia in March of 2016. And I was on a flight to Australia.
What are the details of this Australian team? Like, where was it at?
So I was going to tell you that. So the coach tells me one thing, and then when we get there, it was 2 different things. So, so in the email, obviously, like, this is also like advice for players. Like, whatever Wikipedia tells you, it's probably not correct. So when I went on and I was like finding these clubs, and I'm emailing them, right? Like, in when I found this club, the team I played for was called Wynnum District Soccer Club, or also known as Wolves FC. When I went, the coach, and even on Wikipedia, said they play in the Brisbane Premier League. And now anybody who's played in Australia knows that the Brisbane Premier League is a very, very good league. It's tough, it's good, it's a high level, and some teams do pay very well. So I'm like, I didn't know about that, but I figured, I was like, I put it on YouTube, and they had videos and all that stuff. I'm like, word, like, this is legit. Like, it might be semi-pro, but this is legit.
Yeah,
I'm out there. Right. So pretty much, like, I told him this. I was like, hey, listen, what can you pay me? And he goes, I can give you like $250 a week, 250 Australian dollars. I was like, okay, which is like, at that time was probably like $200 US. I was like, okay, that's not that bad. He's like, listen, if you need more money, we'll get you a job. He's like, that's what we do for all our foreigners. I'm like, okay. So I get out there. I miss a whole day. I fly out on a Saturday, and I get there on a Monday. Didn't even see Sunday. I'm super tired, disoriented, don't know where the heck I am. It's like 102 degrees in Brisbane. Coach picks me up, and same thing. I didn't even know they drive on the other side of the road. So I'm just like, yo, what is going on here? Like,
such a disorienting thing when you get down there.
Dude, it's nuts. The worst. Like, like England, you see videos, whatever. Like, they drive on the other side of the road. But I'm like, I wasn't very educated about Australia. So I get there, and like, the coach goes to the right-hand side, and I go on that side. He goes, oh, mate, like, you're on my side. And I'm like,
yeah, I did that all the time when I was young.
I was like, oh shit, sorry. Like, I thought. He's like, it's all right. It's like all the Americans do it. And I was like, oh, great. Like, add me to the collection. So I go in the car and he drops me off at the house that they gave us. And he goes, "Hey, we're gonna train tonight. We have training. Are you in?" I was like, "All right, yeah, let's go." So I go. I took a nap for like 2 hours. I met the family I stayed with, which till today I still talk to them. Um, and we go to training. I'm super beat, man, super duper beat. And I have a good training session. He goes, "Do you want to play this weekend?" He's like, "Are you ready to play this weekend?" Now, that was my biggest mistake, and I will forever hold that against myself.
Wow.
I should have literally said no. And the reason is because over there it's summertime. It's 100 degrees. It's hot.
Yeah. You need to
And you know how it is here in New York, New Jersey area. February, March is cold as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not playing outside. At the most we're probably playing is like 7v7. And that's what I was doing. I was playing 7v7. I was playing futsal, 4v4s, 5v5s. And I don't care who tells you otherwise. Playing futsal and 7v7 is completely different from going outside and playing on grass. I don't care what the fitness or whatever. No, it is. There's no way you can compare. There's no way you can be as fit. So I get out there, and first game we play against it's a derby. We play against our local rivals, which was Bayside United. We start, and I have we're in the locker room, whatever, and I know I'm starting, and the coach literally says this to us. He goes, "I don't want to see passes into the midfield." He's like, "Defenders, grab the ball and boot it long into the box." I'm like, "What?"
Oh, jeez.
No, dude, it gets worse. So whatever. I was like, okay. I was like, I mean, I guess that's the style, whatever. I mean, obviously, I was in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, professional, semi-professional game, like there's tactics. He's probably got a reason to do it. We're walking out, two lines, whatever. I'm looking at the center back. He's standing right next to me. I'm looking at the center back for the other team. This guy's about like 6'6", and I'm like, you want me to kick the ball long into this guy? I'm like, he's literally just gonna stand there and knock it out. I'm like, what the hell? All right, whatever. So first ball comes, first ball in the header. Second ball, it's a tackle. I win the tackle, and I'm like, all right, I'm having a decent game. And our line, since all of us really didn't know each other, we weren't talking, we weren't doing this. So we ended up going down 3-0 and by the first 20, 25 minutes. And I'm like, I'm having a shit show. It is bad. I'm like, I thought I was starting good, but I'm like, clearly not. Now, I watch the videos and until this day, and I tell him sometimes, because I've spoken to the other center back that played with me. He kept every striker on, and he blamed me every single time. It was always my fault. Why? Because I'm the American, I'm the foreigner, whatever. It's always my fault. But I always watch the video and I'm like, dude, you were 3 steps behind me. You kept them on. But it is what it is. And so we go down, whatever. And I get a ball, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not kicking it long. I'm playing it short to my center mid. And my center mid freaks the hell out. He's like he doesn't know what to do with the ball. It's like lava. And I'm like,
the definition of he doesn't want it. In those
no,
English guys, they always yell, he doesn't want it.
Literally did not want it. So what happens? Our coach literally at halftime subs me off. Done for the whole game. And I'm like, what the hell, man? I was like, I didn't even do it. I was pissed. So second game, I didn't play. I didn't start, sorry, and I played. And then the following game again, played a little bit. And then by the fourth game, I was on the bench, didn't play. And I was like, all right, this isn't gonna work out. So the coach was cool with us, in the fact that he gave us coaching work and all that stuff. So he was always with us all the time. So I literally told him one day, I was like, hey, listen, there's a couple of things we need to talk about. And you told me we were playing in this league, and I'm like, and we're playing in the league under, which was called the Capital League One. So it was technically at that time, it was the 4th division. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't care about the divisions because it's still semi-pro and I'm still getting paid. I was like, I don't care. And I was like, but you kind of BS me. He's like, oh no, I'm just making BS, whatever. And I'm like, look, I want to play. What else can I do? He goes, you know what? You're kind of small for center back. Now, mind you, I'm 6 foot. So, 6 foot is not very tall either, but it's not that small. And he's like, yeah, well, you're pretty small. He's like, can you play right back? And I was like, if you train me, yeah, I'll do it. So we would go early in the mornings before we all coached and whatever. And he would do extra work with us, some of us, the foreigners. And I trained as a right back. So we had an FFA Cup game, which for people who don't know, that's the, the equivalent of the FA Cup.
Yep.
And we played a team that was 2 divisions higher. So they played in the National Premier League. And that day, it freaking poured. I mean, it looked like the world was ending. Like floods, everything. We're like, oh, game's going to get canceled. Nope. We go to the field, and the coach literally says, did you guys bring your long studs? And I'm like, what? Like, I've never used metal studs in my life. So they let me borrow these, and I'll never forget them. Some size 11 and a half studs this long, Lotos, and they were like the sticky like material. And I'm like, I don't know how to play in these shoes. Like, I don't even know how to stop the ball. Like, it's weird. It's different. I mean, a lot of people will be like, oh, it's stupid. But like, if you've never played in metal studs, it is completely different.
Yeah.
And I started at right back and literally played 20 minutes, and the coach helped me off again. And I was like, what the fuck, man? I'm like, this is so, like, I tried to talk to him, and that's when he started like changing with me 100%. And I was getting frustrated, and I was like busting my ass at practice. And then he eventually dropped me to the reserve team. And that's when I was like, oh my God, like, yo, like, because the problem is, like, in Australia, right? I mean, maybe it's changed, maybe it hasn't, I'm not sure. But if you play top team football, you get paid. Yeah. And for my team, you got paid every 10th of the month. You got paid once a month, right? So I got dropped down to the reserve team, and I had no money. So I'm like,
so they stopped paying you?
Exactly. So they stopped paying me, and I'm like, oh, listen, like, in the contract it says I get paid no matter what. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what it says. So I always take pictures of my contracts and everything, and I always like make sure I have them. Yep. And it literally says, like, on the bottom, like, no matter what, I need to get paid, and they didn't want to pay me. So I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, I can't argue this, because at the end of the day, they're not going to listen to me. And I dropped down to the reserve team, and I'm like, I'm so pissed. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to work my socks off. I'm going to get back on the top team. And, that's it. So month passes by, and results are not going the first team's way. Like, they lose like 4 or 5 games in a row. And we're like bottom of the table, about to get relegated. And coach gets fired. And he was my boss too for like coaching, because he still let me coach. Like, he wasn't that much of a D-bag, and he gets fired. And they bring in a new coach, and he was a South African guy, and he's supposedly like coached somewhere abroad, I don't know, somewhere in Asia or something like that. And the people that I lived with the kit manager and his wife. So the kit manager, like, we had a good relationship. I was, they're like second parents to me, honestly.
Yeah.
And he goes, listen, mate, I'm gonna talk to the coach for you. You're playing very well in the reserve team. Like, you don't deserve to be there. Like, I'm gonna talk to them. So he goes, he talks to them, and it was literally like going in one ear and out the other. Paid no attention to me, nothing at all. And we would always do scrimmages on Wednesdays. Wednesday was literally scrimmage day. It was first team versus reserve team. Mm-hmm. And I shit you not, I would like play my socks off, and I'm like literally looking like the better right back, and I would never get picked ever, just because, for whatever reason. The other coach brought in more players, so like players that he knew. He brought in his son, obviously. And it was like, I was never going to play. So in June of that year, one of the kids that I coached, his dad was like the coolest man on the planet Earth. Like, this dude was cool as hell, man. And his son loved me. And like, his son would literally come to my games just to watch me play. And his dad was like, listen, man, like, yo, I love you, dude. Like, you're an awesome person. You're an awesome player. Like, you put your head down, you work, you grind. Like, I want to help you. So I'm like, how can you help me? He goes, I want to get you out of this team, and I want to get you on another one. And I was like, all right, let's do it.
So we started going at the end, getting towards the end of the season for your Australian team.
So yeah, it's like towards the end. So it's like, so in June over there, you can, June 3rd, I don't know how it is. I don't know if it's like June 25th to June 30th is their transfer window. So that's the only time you can go sign for another club. So around that time, he's like, listen, every day we're going to go train with a new club, and, I'll drive you there. I'll take you, and we'll see where it works. So I went to like an MPL club. They didn't need any more defenders. I went to 3 BPL clubs. One kept me there for a couple of days, and then at the end they were like, listen, like, we'll take you, but we're going to put you on the reserve team. And I was like, nah, like, I'm not playing reserve team football. And not being cocky, it's just like, I just want to play. Like, I know that if I go first team, like, it's reserve team, I'm not going to get the opportunity. So he goes, listen, I got a friend that's up north, about like 30 minutes from Brisbane. Their team is in Capital League 2, so the league under. He goes, he'll take you. He needs a right and left back, and he'll pay you about like $200 per game. So I go, I train, and I automatically, he liked me, signed me, and he goes, listen, first game I'm gonna make you play with the reserve team just because. And I was like, okay, fine. I play center mid. Haven't played center mid maybe since I was like 10 years old. I'm completely like lost. So all I did was literally just pass and kick people. Like I did not know what I was doing. And we win that game, and then I go and I sit on the top the bench for the top team, and I go in like the last 30 and I play left back. And I won my spot. So after that I played. Was like obviously loving, football again, loving Australia, whatever. And playoffs come and I don't start. And I was like, dude, like I literally played every game coming up to the playoffs. Like, why am I not playing? And he was just kind of like, coach was like, listen, it's nothing personal. It's just like, I just feel like, such and such is better for the playoffs. I was like, whatever. We ended up losing in the first round. Done. Season's over. Now I got nothing to do. So I stayed there for like an extra month, and I was like, all right, word. Let me see what else I can try to find. Obviously nothing, because everyone finished at the same time. So my options were A, go home and try to find a team later on and don't come back, or B, stay there and, do the most illegal thing and, go over my visa day and not get deported.
I was just about to ask you that. What type of visa were you on when you were over there?
So I got a work and holiday visa. So it allows you to work and play and do whatever for a whole year. Now, I didn't know until I came home that you can renew that visa by doing farm work. So I didn't know that.
I've heard about this. Yeah. I've heard like for 1 year you can do like a specific type of job, but then if you do farm work, like you can renew it for another year.
Yeah. And I didn't know that. No one told me that. So I said, you know what, like I've obviously missed my parents. I miss my family, my friends, whatever. Like I'm going to come home for a short period of time and I'll just go back.
So how long were you were away for the full year, right?
A whole year. Yeah, man. I was there for a whole year. And so before I left, I was like, look, I got to find me a team. I was like, I don't care. I need something to know that I'm going to come back. So I started emailing again, the number one tool, email. And obviously, since I was in Australia, I just started texting coaches and calling them. And I had a team in New South Wales, which is the state under, in the National Premier League 2, I think it was, a team called Western New South Wales Mariners. Emailed the coach. I blew up his phone. And he goes, listen, I'll sign you, but I'll sign you for like $120 a week. And I was like, can you give me a job? No. Can you get me coaching work? No. And I'm like, man, that's
rough.
I'm like, that's rough, man. I was like, I can't really do anything. So I was like, all right, I'll think about it. So I get another email, maybe like 4 or 5 days before my flight is supposed to take off back to America. And I get another email from another local club in Brisbane called Mountain Cravat Hawks. And I talked to the coach. He's like, listen, I've seen you play. He's like, I've talked to your ex-coaches. I've heard very good things about you. You're very professional. You're a good guy. I'm going to bring you in. Sweet. So I go, and before I left, I signed a contract, and it was a very good contract too. He was willing to pay me like $450 per week. I was like, word. And I was like, can you give me a job? He's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I'll do anything. I was like, I worked at a car wash, because that's what I did as a part-time. I worked at a car wash for a couple of days, like a couple of weeks when I was at Wolves, but they had to let me go because I don't know how to drive stick, and I almost crashed a Lamborghini into the wall. Dude, I tell this story to people, and they're like, nah, like I don't believe that. And I swear on my grandfather who's passed away, man. I literally get in this Lambo, and I don't know how to drive stick. Ever in my life, I haven't driven stick, and I move like the stick shift, and the car just zooms into the wall, and I like slam on the brakes, and they're like, nah, Fede, get out, like go wash the cars. And I was like, okay, my bad. Like
that's bad, wild.
And don't get me wrong, like, yo, car washes over there, like I would do that part-time any day of the week, just because over there, like you were getting like, I think we were getting like $550 a week just to wash cars. It was sick, man. Like, so at the end of the day, like playing football, when I was getting paid and working at the car wash, like you were making some decent money, And so I told him, I was like, I'll do anything. So he's like, do you want to paint? He's like, I can get you like part-time painting. Now I was like, I'm like, all right. My dad's a painter. Like, he's always been a painter. He's painted his whole life. So I kind of know how to paint because I painted with him. And
Don't
do I
love
want to
that,
tell?
but
I was like, no. I was like, do I want to go down the same route as my dad? I'm like, all right, you know what? I was like, it's a little bit extra cash. I was like, it's Australia. You get paid decently well. Let's do it. So I signed a contract. I agree with him to go do some painting. And he's like, listen, we start preseason X day. I was like, okay, I'm going to go home for a couple months. I'll be back. I get back, obviously, come back home to America. Everyone's happy, whatever. And I start spending money like there's no tomorrow. Like I don't know what went through my mind, and I just start spending money and money and money. And there came a point where like I had no money, and I had to like ask a friend. I'm like, yo, dude, like, can you let me borrow some cash? He goes, yeah. And I was like, oh, I don't know when I'll pay you back. And he goes, bro, like, pay me back when you can, and if you can't, don't worry about it. And it was time for me to leave, and I didn't have money for my flight. So I'm like BSing the coach. I'm like, yeah, I have some issues right now, blah, 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 this and that. And I never, like, things came up. Like, I ended up getting hurt. I had to help like family members, and like I had to help another friend. Like, he was an issue. So like my best friend, right? His name is Billy. And me and him, like, we've gone to tryouts together. We've gone, overseas together. Like, we do everything. Like, me and him are like literally like peanut butter and jelly. We're like super close. Maybe not now because, obviously when you get older, like work and girlfriends and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like, he's my best friend, like, for life. Like, I don't care. Like, and I wanted to help him out because he's a good little footballer too, And I was like, look, this guy, he's not like me though. Like, he's not the kind of person who's going to sit on the computer and email 5,000 people. He won't do that. But I'm like, yo, I want to help him, man. Like, I want him to go overseas. So I start like looking online again. I start doing the whole thing, and I find this club called Wagga Wagga City Wanderers. Right, they're from the New South Wales, like, the NPL. I forgot. I think it was like NPL 3.
mm-hmm.
So I started talking to the guy. His name was Brendan Flanagan. I started talking to the guy. I'm like, hey, listen, like, I'm a defender. My buddy's a defender, like a midfielder, whatever. He's like, yeah, listen, we want to bring you guys both over. We'll pay for your flight. We'll give you a free pair of boots. We'll give you a free housing. We'll give you free food, but we can't pay you guys. All right. I was like, can you get us a job? He goes, yeah, I'll get you a job at auto body shop. And I was like, all right, perfect. So that's where the renewing the visa issue comes in. So I didn't know about the renewing visa. So I was like, you know what? I'll just get a new visa. And to get a visa to Australia, if you don't renew stuff, it is extremely, extremely hard because you can't BS them. You have to be honest. Like, all right, what are you going to go overseas for? Like, what are you coming here for? So I have to tell them, I was like, I'm going to play football for, such and such. No, this visa is not it. You can't get it. Denied. Boom. Like, damn. So I got to wait like 2-3 months. So my buddy ended up going, and I couldn't go at the end of the day. And I stayed here in America. And at that time, I knew a kid that was playing out in at that time, the professional league called the American Soccer League, the ASL. So I ended up signing for a team called the Philadelphia Atoms. Now, at first, they didn't want to take me. Man. I went to their open tryouts, same thing. I was like, all right, well, I got nothing to lose. Like, it's like $20, whatever. It's like an hour and a half drive. I'm going to go. Go down there.
If you don't mind me asking, who's the coach at this time of that?
At that time, it was a guy named George Gunn.
Okay.
Because the owner is or was Matt Driver.
Yeah. Okay.
And dude,
I have a story about him too, but let's hear yours.
If anybody who knows Matt Driver, he is excuse me how I'm gonna say this, but he is the biggest piece of shit you can meet. Like, he is the absolute worst guy ever. Like, this guy still owes me money. Like, let's just put it like that.
From the season.
Adams. Yeah,
I had heard a lot about this. Yeah.
Oh, it's so common of him. And so I go to the open tryouts, and he goes there. And mind you, I was fit. I was as fit as I've ever been. I think I weighed like 170 pounds, like the lightest I've ever been. And he goes up to me and goes, listen, mate, you're fat. You're not going to make it. He's like, you're not signing. And he just walks out. And I'm like,
what?
I'm like, what the fuck is it? I'm like speechless. And my girlfriend at that time, we were supposed to go to Philadelphia. And I'm like, yo, babe, honestly, like, let's just go home. I was like, I don't know what to say to that. She goes, yo, don't listen to that. I was like, nah, like that bothers me. Because as a kid, like, I always suffered with obesity. I was always fat as a little kid. So like, I know a lot of people are like, would be like, oh, like it shouldn't bother you. But like when you've always been fat and then you're like an adult and someone tells you fat and you're not fat, it bothers you. You know what I'm saying? And it really bothered me a lot. And I'm like, you know, like he could have said like to me, listen, you're not at the level to play here, you know, this and that, blah, blah. And I would have been like,
specific thing to say,
yeah. And I would have been like, all right, you know what? You're all right, fine. Like maybe I'm not at the level, and that's fine. But he literally is like, oh, you're fat. You're not good enough. Get out of here. And I was like, mother, all right, whatever. So I knew George had the coach because before I went to Australia, I had been training with a team called the Delaware Copperheads, and they were playing in the ASL too. So I played with them before I left, and we had another coach. His name was Jason, and Jason and George would work together or whatever. So I knew him. So I like sent him an email, and I was like, "Yo, dude, like, I really want to play. Like, I feel like I can play on this team." He goes, "Listen, we start preseason in like end of May. Come down, train, see how you do, and then you know if you do well, we'll sign you." So all right, so I didn't do anything. I didn't play. I just trained, and then I went down in May to preseason, and I ended up signing with them for the following that year. And to be honest with you, like we were awful. We were so bad, man. Like it was. I don't even know how to explain it. Like it was the most unprofessional professional team you could ever be on. We would go to trainings. It was 2 or 3 times a week. We trained down at Total Turf down in Mantua, New Jersey. And George ends up leaving. We don't have a coach. So one of my teammates, Tim, had to take the sessions. I had to do the sessions sometimes. And then we ended up getting this new coach, Ken, this Nigerian guy. And he was an okay coach. I have nothing really bad to say to him. But it was just, I don't feel like he was to par with like, you know, with the level we were supposed to play at.
Yeah.
And I played that season, and my dad would go to the games because, you know, they were local. And like my dad would always say the same thing. He's like, hey, this league is made so the yellow team can win, which the yellow team was the Philadelphia Fury. It was literally my dad was like, literally, this league is made for them to win. You don't realize that? And I'm like, nah. I never realized it. And then I was like, I would like, you know, I would sit back later on and I'm like, damn, dude, like he's right. Like this league is literally made for them. Because the following year, that summer that fall after I was done playing, I got in again, started emailing, started searching, and I found this like showcase thing in Thailand. And I sent them a message on Twitter, and they answered me, but they're like, oh, email us and send us a message on Facebook. So bet. Go message them. And they're like, listen, it's like $800 to do the showcase. You play against 3 professional teams. You get trainings, you get kit, you get food, you get hotel, done. I was like, we're not even thinking about it twice. And I go, and I have an absolutely amazing showcase. I got picked as the captain of the showcase. We ended up playing against Bangkok Glass B, which for people who don't know, Bangkok Glass is, you know, a team in the Thai Premier League. They have a really, really nice stadium. We played them. We beat them. We played another team, which is like probably one of the biggest teams in the 3rd division. That they personally like to stay in the 3rd division. They don't like aspire to move from there. Chamchur United, we beat them. And then we ended up playing one more, and I don't remember their name, and we beat them as well. And there was like talks and stuff like that about like they were all talking about me, and they're like, oh, he reminds us of Matt Smith. And for people who don't know who Matt Smith is, Matt Smith played for Brisbane Roar. He played on the Australian national team. Like the guy's a sick center back, you know, and like just to know that I was like getting compared to him because he was the captain of Bangkok Glass at this time. Okay. I was like, yo, that's impressive, man. Like, so I know like I'm doing well. So I think that one team offered to sign me, and like the people who run the company, they're like, listen, it's too low money for you. Like, it's not worth it. You're a foreigner. Like, you should get more. So I waited a couple of days and nothing, and I came back home. And then we always stayed in touch. And they're, listen, we're gonna have another showcase in December. Are you gonna play on a team? I'm like, I'm gonna see if I can play again with the Philadelphia Atoms, and then I'll let you know. So I came home. I messaged the coach Ken, and he was like, oh, I'm gone. I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. He's like, it's the worst organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right. I hit up Matt Driver. Matt Driver never answered. And, you know, not like he was never gonna answer anyways, because I messaged him about money and it was just like red. So it's like, all right, whatever. Yeah, dude, like we like look, like I'm not gonna BS you. Like our contracts were like $100 per game, right? Win or lose, it was $100 per game. And like anybody who hears that, like, wow, like that's professional. Well, like I said, it's a professional league.
Yeah.
And you know, and I never saw a dime. Never. And the guy owes me like at least like $1,000. And
That's why I'd heard a lot about that team, even when they went up into NISA, because they were in
Yeah.
NISA for a little bit, the Philadelphia
they
Fury,
were.
and then folded because players weren't getting paid, and like then players started to leave, and it was just and my story is not the same. I never actually played with the club, but I did go to a trial for them for, I don't know if it was the Fury or the Adams a few years ago, and felt like I had done well. Didn't really hear anything back. Stayed a little bit in touch with Matt Driver, and then like at one point told me to like come to a friendly that they were playing or something, that the Adams were playing maybe, and tells me where it is and what time, and like I show up and
no one's there.
Like it's just like youth kids playing. Like I go inside and like there's nobody inside. Like I'm outside on that turf field, and like, it's just a youth team training, and I'm like, what? Like, so I was like texting him like, hey, like what is, is there a friendly, or am I in the wrong place? And never heard anything back. So it's funny. Like I always find it when I do these podcasts, it's like you can always kind of make one little connection, like the small world of soccer type thing. But
that always
the Philadelphia
is, man.
Fury is wild.
Nah, dude, it's like I don't even know. It's the fact that I ended up playing there. I guess it opened up my eyes more to it, because like I would always see ASL, and I would see, because like my cousin played in ASL too. He played for a team that was local to me called Icon FC, but Icon FC was just like, it was like impossible to get on. Like it didn't even matter if you had like a cousin, a brother, or whatever. Like my cousin would take me to trainings with them, and it was just no way I can get in, because they had way too many like ex pros, like ex like MLS guys and stuff like that, and like guys who played in Italy and things like that. And it was like, all right, like I'm not saying that I can't compete with those guys, but it's just like the organization and the people who own it, they're just not going to take me, And when I told my cousin, I was like, yo, I'm going to go down to the Philadelphia teams. And he even told me, he's like, yo, dude, like I've heard bad things about them. And like, I'm like, have you ever talked to them? He's like, no. He's like, but I know a couple of people that have been down there, and it's not the best. So I'm like, all right, like I got to play. Like at the end of the day, I got to play, and, and I got to do what I got to do. So yeah, like, I mean, like I was telling you, so I came back from that showcase, and then I tried to hit up the Adams, and hit up Driver, no answer. I hit up the new coach, and he was like, yeah, like, listen, like if you want to come, like you can come train. He's like, but I can't guarantee you a spot on the team this year. So I went down a couple of days, and dude, I mean, it was like 10 guys, and there was like, now, not to sound messed up or like cocky or whatever, but there was like overweight guys. There was like guys who could not play at that level, even if it was professional, semi-pro. 10 guys, man, for almost a 2-hour drive. And I went like 2-3 days in a row, and it was the same thing. And I literally told the coach, I was like, you know what? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, but gotta go.
I gotta go. And even because my dad would go with me, like my dad would always go with me, just because, it was a far drive, and he never wanted like me to fall asleep or whatever the case may be. And my dad was literally like, the fact that you came 2 days, he's like, you're an idiot. I'm like, well, Dad, what do you want me to do? Like, like I got nothing else to do, so I gotta come. So I just trained, and I ended up, I think I ended up playing like some like local team around here, like in the like, Sunday league. And then I went back for another showcase in December. And honestly, it didn't go very well. I didn't play great. We played like other professional teams, and I just didn't play great. I was fitter. I was way fitter. I was like, there was no excuse. I just didn't have a good showcase. But the people from that showcase were like really cool with me and really nice. And they like, we became friends, and they're like, yo, come to one more, play this season. Like just play locally at home, just train, come, and, we'll get you signed. So I go 2018, summer of 2018. And like they said, just train hard. And I trained my socks off, man. I was like the fittest. I was like, look, I was like, yo, I want to play any position possible, every position that foreigners take up in Thailand. Like I will play it. Like I don't care. So they're like, all right, well, technically you're one of the fittest guys here. Like, do you want to play outside mid? I was like, okay, let's do it. So we go, we play our first game against it was like a team, like a reserve team of a second division club. And we play a 3-5-2, and I'm playing wingback. And they gave us like the vest, like the GPS, whatever. And like you look at my map at the end of the game, and I don't know how many miles I covered. I covered a lot of miles, and I just ran. It was all red. And I was like, dude, I worked. I almost had an assist. I almost scored. And one of the scouts comes up to our, like, the guys were running. They're like, yo, he's good, but I don't see him as a wing back because he's too slow. And I'm like, yo, I just ran like 50 miles,
for
like
90 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, like I just ran 90 minutes in 100-degree heat with like 90% humidity. Like, what? He goes, no. He goes, listen, in Thailand, like if you're a foreigner and you play out wide, like you got to be really quick. Like they don't really care if you run. Like just want you to be quick. All right, fine. So then the second and third game, I play center back. I play well, and I ended up getting some trials. I ended up going to a third division team and a fourth division team. And I was gonna sign for a third division. No, sorry, I was gonna sign for a fourth division team. And before I was gonna sign, they folded. Like the team just disappeared. Like it ceased operations. And I was like, crap, like what do I do now? So I ended up staying another week in Thailand. And the guys from the same company, they ended up helping me out, get a couple of trials. And I was gonna sign for a third division team. And I don't know what came over me, honestly. I decided not to do it. My sister was talking to me while I was over there, and she goes, "Hey, listen, like my job is looking for people." And I was like, "Well," I was like, "How much do they pay?" And she told me like the yearly salary, which was like 40K. And I'm like, "Well, I haven't made more than like 20 in like years,
Your whole life,
you know?"
yeah.
So I'm like, dude, do I do this? So I talked to the club and I was like, how much can you guys pay me? And they're like, we can pay you like, $1,200 a month. So I started doing the math and I'm like, all right, nah, like it's better for me just to get a job. I was like, I'll figure it out. I'll try to play like pro in America or something like that. And I just came home. And I came home that summer of 2018, and like I focused on working and stuff like that. And I used to work for a company called Siemens, like a German company.
Okay.
Yeah, so I worked for them because my sister's been there for like 20 years. And Brendan, I ain't gonna lie to you, man, it was the worst decision I ever made. I hated waking up every single day to do the same goddamn thing. It was the worst decision I made, you know.
And
And
9 to 5 life is difficult for a lot of people.
not even 9 to 5. This was like 7 to 3, and then like it changed from like 6 to 2. It was the worst, man.
What were you actually doing? Like, what was your job?
So I used to work for a division of Siemens called Health and Ears. So what we used to do, we used to build machines for hospitals. The machine I used to build was called the clinical chemistry machine or something like that. And pretty much what it does, it like tests blood and urine. That's what it was doing. But it was so repetitive. It was literally the same damn thing every morning. And it's like, you do one machine, well, you got to build another one. You do another machine, well, you got to build another one. Like you can't just sit there and not do anything. So I'm like the whole year went by, and it was almost 2019, or sorry, like the whole fall, whatever. And it was almost 2019. And I'm like, nah, man, like this is not for me. Like I gotta find something to do. Like I gotta find a team. I gotta do something. Like this is terrible. So in my head, like this crazy idea came into my head. I'm like, yo, you know what would be sick if I can play in a Champions League? And I'm like, that's me literally thinking big. Like that's me being like 17 years old again and thinking like big. I'm like, yo, me playing a Champions League would be sick. But I was realistic with myself. I'm like, all right, where could I definitely play Champions League? And I'm like, all right, I could definitely play CONCACAF Champions League. Not for obviously for an MLS team or like one of the big clubs. I was like, but I could definitely play MLS. CONCACAF Champions League. All right, let me contact some clubs. I contacted a few in the Caribbean, whatever, and they didn't play in the Champions League. They played in like some like Caribbean club, cup, shield, whatever. Some of them told me to go, but they're like, oh, we can't give you any money, and you have to come play with us in the regular season, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, all right, well, that's not worth it because I'm not making a dime. I'm like, all right, where else can I check? And I check Asia. Now, Asia's Champions League is absolutely massive. Now, UEFA Champions League is huge, but the Asian one, there is so many teams in that championship. It's insane.
Wow.
So I'm like, all right, let's start from A to B. So I start messaging Arabic teams, Middle Eastern teams, Indian teams, Chinese teams. Like, I did not care. At that point, I was like, yo, if they take me, they take me. And if they don't, they don't. I think I got like one answer from like an Arabic team, and they're like, yeah, like we would like to take you. We'd be interested, but unfortunately, like it's kind of hard for you to get a visa because you're American and we have issues with you guys because of war and stuff like that. And I was like, great. I was like, oh, cool. Like, you know, like great because of war. Great. With my luck. I'm like, all right. Asia's out the question. I was, unless like I try Australia again. I'm like, but obviously it's the A League, you know, and for you to get signed in the A League, like you either need to be an
tough,
Australian or like you need to be a big time, like, you know, foreign player. And I'm like, I ain't no big time player. And I'm like, yo, like, let me look at OFC. I'm like, it's probably not pro. I'm like, but I could definitely play there and get an opportunity. So
now, when you say OFC, what are you referring to? For maybe people don't know.
I don't know how to say, Oceania Football Federation or Confederation, whatever it is.
Gotcha.
So like where New Zealand is, what else? Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Fiji, all those like Pacific Islands. And so I start doing that, and before that, I had decided to email some clubs from Europe, from like the UEFA, like Europa League, and I was like, you know what? Let me message some clubs. So I hit up Bulgaria, and now I don't want to sound like like a douche, but if anybody's from Bulgaria, oh man, I hate Bulgaria. That is the worst place ever. I will never go back there, dude. I hate it. But I ended up getting in contact with some clubs in the Europa League. It was like first division, and I was like, all right, well, you know, I don't feel like Bulgarian football is that high of a level, so I could probably maybe get a chance. So the guy was like, hey, listen, I know an agent. I'll give you his contact, reach out to him, and then, you know, you can come out here and then we'll figure it out. So I reach out to the agent, and very nice guy. And he goes, listen, like, right now it's kind of hard for you to sign in the first division because, you know, the season started and like the foreign spots are all taken, but I can definitely get you an opportunity in the third. I was like, okay, let's do it. So I book a flight to Bulgaria, and he goes, listen, like, just pay me $500 and, you know, I'll set you up with everything. And I was like, okay. So I get there and I paid him in cash. I give him $500, and he pays for my bus from Sofia to Razlog, right, which is all the way up in the mountains.
Razlog, Bulgaria.
Yeah,
this
dude,
sounds like out of a horror movie.
Yeah, man. I mean, the actual town wasn't bad, but it's just like, nah. So like the situation was like this. So I had to live in like an apartment that the club gave. I had to eat at a restaurant that the club was like affiliated with. And then I had to walk up to the club. Now, mind you, the club in the stadium was like at the top of the mountain. So from like, I lived at the bottom and I had to walk up a steep hill like this to get to the club. There was like a workout before you even worked out. So that was the thing. And to get to the restaurant, you had to walk 3 miles. Like, there was no one taking you. We had to walk 3 miles, me and like the other foreign players. So every day we walked for lunch and dinner, 3 miles there, 3 miles back. So by the time literally we walked back, we were hungry all over again. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the worst. And then the apartment situation, like, it was owned by like a player or whatever in the club. And it was colder inside the room than it was outside. And like, we would tell the guy, like, hey man, can you turn on the heat? And he would like not turn it on, or he knew that we were gone and he would turn it on when we were gone. And then at night we're freezing. Like, my buddy, one of my buddies that I became friends with, like, over there, he sent me a picture the other day, and I'm like literally in a hat, like up to here, covered to my head, like, because I'm freezing.
Yeah.
Like laying in bed. Like, that was how bad it was. And the club, the whole train situation, like, the coach was, I'm not gonna lie to you, he was pretty racist, man. Like, he treated the black players like crap. He treated me like crap because I was American, and I just didn't like the situation. He first week I'm there, like, I go into a scrimmage, I play, I do well. I'm like, all right, I'm doing well. Like, I can play here, you know. Second week I'm there. I was there for like almost 3 weeks. Second week I'm there. Again, was supposed to actually play in the scrimmage, and he didn't let me play. He said some BS reason I couldn't play. Oh, because we were playing against the town mayor, whatever, like his club, so I can't play. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? I'm like, all right, whatever. So So he goes and and like the following week he goes and he's like, oh, come into the office. And I thought he was going to tell, like, you know what, like, I'm cutting you. We don't want you. So he goes and he says, listen, I want to sign you. I'm going to give you a contract. It's 500 lev. I don't know if it was per month or per week. I don't know. I didn't really listen. And I literally look at him and I'm like, okay. I was like, I'm not going to sign right now. I need to talk to my agent. I didn't have one. I just knew the guy that sent me there. My, thought process was, you know what? I'm not staying here. Like any other player, like, yeah, like you would take the opportunity, just play, and then you move up to like, the second division or try to move up to the first. But the situation was just so bad.
Yeah.
So bad. Like it was not worth it. Like
And
why
it would
would
have
I
been
want to
different too if this was like your first ever opportunity and like
absolutely
you had already done it. You know what I mean? Like I always say, I feel like you level up a little bit, right? Like you want a little bit more each time. And like, maybe like you said, when you're 21 and I just want a contract anywhere. Yeah, maybe you'll take it. But there comes a certain point where you're like, all right, I don't want to wear a winter hat every night to
yeah, man. Oh, dude, it was the worst. I mean, like there was times where like the pitch, when we had training, the pitch was covered in snow. So they had like a small turf field that was caged in, and we would train there. Now, mind you, there's 30 something guys training on like a 7v7 field. Like it was crazy. It was ridiculous. And I mean, obviously, like trainings were decent. That's not what I was complaining about, but it was just like the way that we were treated. And like me, like I just didn't like the fact like how he was with the black players. Like the coach, like literally like would single them out and like would make them train on their own. And I'm just like, dude, like you can't be any more obvious that you don't like these guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's terrible. And I'm like, you guys are technically a professional club. I'm like, dude, like it's terrible. You can't be like that. So me and another kid that he was Greek, right? We go and we're supposed to, he was my roommate in the place. And I was like, dude, to be honest with you, like, I know we were supposed to have a scrimmage that Friday. And I was like, dude, to be honest with you, like, I don't freaking care, man. Like, I don't want to play. He goes, no, let's play. Like, let's play. Like, we got to play. Like, let's finish strong. Like, yo, they already offered us contracts. Like, yo, we got to take it. I knew what I was doing. And I was taking my sweet ass time getting ready. I knew that it was like such and such time we had to be at the stadium. And I was like, oh, yeah. So we're walking out. We start walking to the stadium and the bus drives by, goes around the roundabout, and they're all staring at us like, no, I just wave at them. I'm like, peace. And he's like, dude, we missed the freaking bus. And I was like, bro, I'm not signing with this club. I was like, I'm not doing with it. I was like, I'm not dealing with this, man. I was like, I'm too old to deal with this BS. I'm like, I'm not doing it. He goes, what the fuck, man? Like, I wanted to play. And I was like, dude, you should have left without me. I was like, that's your fault. Like, so I was like, don't blame me for your, so I don't know. I kind of felt bad. And I was like, all right, let me hit up the agent, that brought me here. So I hit him up and he's like, listen, like you can go to another third division team. That's like an hour, like back this way. If you want to come, like it's an hour down the mountain. And I was like, nah, man, I'm good. So I literally look at this kid and I'm like, yo, let's go to Greece. He goes, you want to? He's like, I got family in Greece. I'm like, yeah, screw it. So we go down to like the main town center and we rent a car and we drive down to Greece. Cause like where we were to the Greek border was like an hour. So we drove to Greece. We went to Thessaloniki, one of the bigger cities in the north. Went there, we visited, and he's like, yo, dude, like my family lives like 3 hours away or 4 hours away. And I was like, all right, let's get a hotel and we'll just stay. He's like, nah, screw that. He's like, we're driving now. So we drove down like another 5 hours down to like his family's house. And we stayed in Greece for like 4 days. And then we ended up coming back home we ended up coming back to Bulgaria. We dropped the car off. We got on a plane and we said, screw it. Like we put the X on Bulgaria. Like we're never coming back here ever again. Like ever. Unless like a first division team, like Ludo Goretz or something like that is like ask us to come play. Like, nah, I would never go back there again, man. Never again, man.
Yeah, man. I've heard Eastern Europe can be a tough place. And
it can be very tough, man. It can be very tough. And like it sucks because like, like I know a lot of times like us Americans get a lot of bad rep, but like I feel like there's always one or two that ruin it for everyone else, and that's what sucks. Because like they make us seem like we're the worst kind of people, and like when you really get to know some of us, like we're not bad people at all, man. Like, yeah, like I said, you know, one or two will ruin it for you, but like, we're not bad people, man. And like, these guys have the perception of us as like, oh, like the Yanks, the this and the that and the blah blah blah. But like for me, it's like when you're in somebody else's country, like you got to get accustomed to their lifestyle, their the way they live, their everything, because you're in their country now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you can't just go over there and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm American. Like let me do whatever I want. Like no, it's not like that, man. Like I'm in Bulgaria. Like I mean, I'll mind my own business, but I know that like, all right, they live this way. This is how they see things. Like I gotta respect that. Like can't like just put on my own views and blah 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 because that's when people like start to lose respect for you.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like I tell a story a lot about like when I was in Germany, and like I felt the same way, you know, like I'm in Germany. I want to try and kind of assimilate to the German culture, right? Like you want to learn the language a little bit and you want to kind of break that idea of what the typical American is. Cause like you can just see the way people's face change. Like when you say, oh yeah, like I'm American, like they kind of smile and like they start to laugh a little bit. And it's like, you didn't even say anything else besides the fact that you're American and they're already kind of laughing. And it's like,
they give you you're American.
Yeah, no other country in the world I feel like has that, you know? Like nobody's if somebody says, oh yeah, I'm Canadian, no one's gonna like start to smirk and giggle at you. But for some reason, America, it's like that. So
we get the worst rep. Like I remember like because I went to Germany, not for soccer, but I did a student exchange program because I took 4 years of German in high school. And same thing, like we were over there and like I literally would tell some of my classmates, I'm like, yo, the best way we're gonna learn German is if we just try to talk to them in German. Because they like I don't know if you like noticed it because I was in Wiesbaden, right?
Yeah,
like,
okay.
Frankfurt area.
Yep,
so I was there doing my student, So I was there doing my student exchange program. And like what I noticed, like if you try to speak German and like they see you struggling, they will speak English to you.
Yeah.
But they appreciate the fact that like, all right, well, this guy's trying to speak German. Like, you
Yeah,
know, like I remember
100%.
going to like a McDonald's and I'm like, oh, hello, yeah, kann ich habe eine number 4? And the girl like literally laughs and she goes, oh, you want a number 4? And I'm like, yes, I want a number 4. Like, you know, like, yeah, thank you. Like,
It's funny. I never knew what to make of that, you know, like when somebody starts to then speak to you in English, because I would try in German and then they would be like, do you just want me to talk to you in English? Like, okay, like, I feel like what I said was right, you know, like whatever I said in German, maybe it was a terrible accent, maybe it wasn't conjugated the right way, but I'm pretty sure you know what I was saying. We could have done this. And
exactly. We could have worked this German out. Like, you know, like it wouldn't have been perfect, but like I know you understood what I was saying. And like the girl laughed at me and I kind of like got red because I get embarrassed when like things like that happen.
Yeah.
And she's like, no. And I'm like, no, like you're making me feel bad. Like I'm trying to talk to you in your language and you're over here like, do you want a number 4? Like, great. Like, you know?
It's funny. The two guys I had that play in Germany right now that I had on the podcast, we had like 30 minutes of the episode where we talked about stories like this. Because I don't know why those types of situations, I get so embarrassed by it. Like,
it's the worst.
One of the worst feelings you can have when you're like, somebody starts to speak to you and maybe you don't kind of know what they're saying and you like are trying to figure it out and they're like, oh yeah, you don't know like what I said at all. And you just feel like an idiot. There's nothing like it in the world.
I remember we went to, I forgot where it was. I don't know if it was Berlin or something like that. And we went out to like, and I always tell the story too. Like we went out to this nightclub, right? And it was like 5 floors. On every floor, it had like different music. So you would go like floor 1 was like, let's say rock. And then the second floor, like pop music and then hip hop and then like electronic music. It was crazy. And I remember like every time I would like squeeze by somebody like, oh, entschuldigung. And I remember one guy was like, hey, asshole, get out the way, like in English. And I'm just like, my bad. Like I'm like, and I literally look at one of my friends. I was like, did I say something wrong in German? They're like, no. Like literally straight German dude. Like, hey, asshole. And I'm just like, why am I even speaking German at this point? Like no one like appreciates the fact that I'm trying here. Like it sucks, you know? And I remember, I think the worst one for me was we all went out to Frankfurt. No, we went to Mainz and we're walking around like the town or the city. And like, you know, like over there, they're not as conservative as we are here. So like you see like sex stores and you see all that stuff and it's just different, right? Like to me, like it doesn't bother me, but like it's different. And I remember, I don't know what, like I said something and like I was like talking like crap with some of the German kids and I said something in German and this girl literally opens up the door from the sex store and starts speaking full blown like accent English and I just get blood red. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is so embarrassing. And I would always tell like people, I'm like, that's why sometimes like I get sometimes when like people don't speak a native language and if like they speak with an accent or they like, something like that, they feel embarrassed because people like that, like, oh, you know, but it's just the worst, man, especially in Germany, because you know how they are. Like they're very direct and they don't really
Yeah.
care. They don't respect like your feelings at all. So it's the worst.
Yeah. They just want to get to the point with what they're saying.
Yeah,
It's so true.
it's
But
so true.
so give me the update a little bit and we can kind of maybe end on this point here of where we're at. I mean, obviously the past year has been crazy. I know you've mentioned that you had an injury that you dealt with, and then also like COVID has just been wild in terms of soccer around the world, but kind of where
Yeah.
are we at now in terms of, what you're trying to do, maybe trials or who you're playing with, that sort of thing.
So pretty much what happened was this. 2019, end of 2019, I ended up playing in the Champions League in Oceania. I played with a team from Samoa, played with a team called QEFC. Did the qualifying stages, got into the group stage. We obviously lost. We ended up losing to like Team Wellington that had just played in like the FIFA Club World Cup. And when I came home, I had an opportunity to go to Oman. It fell through. The club coach got fired, whatever. So I ended up playing for a UPSL team called Foxes, which is owned by Christian Fuchs.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't go as planned. I didn't play much. So I'm like, you know what? Like I know I'm at the level. Like I need to, look for an opportunity. So I was gonna go train with some NISA clubs in California. And I was training and I get hurt, man. I like was just training and I stepped. I don't know if I stepped. I don't even know what I did. I like stepped and I just hear the knee pop and I drop and I can't bend my knee. And I had to call my girlfriend. And my girlfriend's 5'1" and she weighs 105 pounds. I weigh literally like 70 more pounds than her. And she had to come pick me up and she's struggling to get me in the car. And we go to the car, go to the hospital, do the whole x-ray, do the MRIs a couple weeks later, go to the doctor. He's like, torn ACL, torn meniscus, got to get operated. I'm like, great. I get up. He's like, listen, we're going to do physical therapy for a month and you're going to get operated in February or whatever. So I get operated and then COVID happens. Mm-hmm. And literally, I know it sounds terrible, but I'm like, thank God this happened during this time because there was no soccer, there was no nothing. And I was like, all right, word. Like, I don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. I don't know what's going to happen. So I ended up, obviously doing physical therapy and I ended up getting back on the field in November. I started playing again. And then I ended up working with an agency and they ended up getting me trials or one trial in March. But before that, I did the Path to Pro combine in California. Okay. So I flew out in February and I knew I wasn't fit. Like I've been out for a whole year. Like I knew, but I just went to go see where I was. And I did decently well, but I only played one game. So obviously like you're not going to get much of a look from one game. And I was like, you know what? Like I just got to get fitter and I'll be all right. So I ended up working for the whole month, like working out, busting my butt, like getting ready. And I went to trial with the Michigan Stars of NISA in March, end of March. And I was there for like 5 days. Same thing. I did well. I was like literally skill wise, like technical wise, I was there with everyone, but it was just the fitness, man. Like I was just way behind. Like you can see how slow I was. And obviously like when you're injured for so long, like your reaction time, it's not there, not yet at least. And, I still like till this day, I'm still working with the agency and ended up doing a couple like combines and stuff like that. And I personally decided I was, you know what, I think what's better is I'm going to play with this EPSL club. So I decided to play for this brand new club called the Carney Scott Americans. And for anybody who's around this area, like knows that the Carney Scott Americans has like super duper rich history. Like they've been around since like 1895. They used to bring in Scottish people from abroad to work at the mills over there in Carney and Newark area. Mm-hmm. So it's got like a rich tradition. And I was like, you know what? I talked to the technical director and he's like, listen, my goal as a technical director is to train you guys and get you ready to go on to bigger and better things, go pro or whatever. And I literally told him, I was like, look, I want to play this year. I want to have a good season. And then hopefully I just want to move on. So that's literally where I'm at now. I'm just focusing on this club, looking to hopefully have a good season, stay fit, stay healthy. And, hopefully keeping my fingers crossed, maybe in January, I'll be able to either go to a NISA club or USL League One or somewhere else where, I can just continue my career for at least a couple more years. Obviously I'm realistic. I know that we're not going to be able to play for forever. So I want to at least enjoy playing at a professional level for, the next couple of years. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. I understand. Like I'm happy knowing that I gave it a shot and that I played in certain areas of the world. And thanks to football, I got to see certain areas of the world. So I wouldn't be upset, like, if nothing came of it, and I end up playing for Carney Scots for the next like 4 or 5 years. I'd be okay with it. But as long as like I know that I tried, I'm happy with it. So I can't be really upset about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, already the career that you've had thus far is like something that you can for sure hang your hat on. Not to say that this has to be the end of it, but
No, yeah.
like the places that you've been to, trialed, like just the stories that you've shared the past hour and a half, it's like, it's kind of part of the reason why we do this, right? Like I would always tell people, part of the reason why I wanted to do it was like to have stories, like to have something to talk about. And when I went to Germany, I went to Denmark, went here, went there, like it's just, you're going to get more of those than when you're working and you're building the machines every day like you were.
No, yeah. And that's like one thing for me, like I don't know if I like said it or not, but one thing that I always did, that I always made sure every club I went to, I always wanted to coach, because I know that when my career is over, I know that I'll still be involved in football and I'll still be able to make money. Not that money is the most important thing, but unfortunately, like we live in a country where you need to make money. Like you can't just live off $100 a day. A week. So like right now I coach for a club here in New Jersey called World Class SCP. And you know what, like it's the best decision I've made to go back to coaching. Football doesn't interfere with it. I train in the mornings. I train from 9:30 to 12 Tuesday through Friday. I coach, 4 days of the week. And, I'm happy. And I've already worked out with the guys. I was like, listen, like if I end up going pro again or wherever, like, are you guys okay with it? And they're like, yeah, definitely. Like, your doors are always going to be open to you. You're always welcome to come back. And that's one thing, like, I always think, like, as a player, get into coaching and just make sure, like, if you go to a club where you make a little bit of money, try to coach there as well. Like, there's always money in coaching. And I feel like as a coach, you get better as a player too, because you're learning every day. Now, sometimes like you will have like a football overload where you're like, oh, dude, I don't want to do nothing with soccer today. Like I'm sick of soccer today. But you learn a lot as a coach and you get better as a player. Because I know there's always the stories like, oh yeah, he's 30, he's 31, he's at his prime, he's going to get worse now. I feel like if you train and you're willing to learn, like you're always going to get better, no matter how old you are. Obviously, when you're 50, yeah, okay, fine. But when you're like in your late 20s and 30s, like you can still become a better player. You can be better than what you were at 20, 25, if you're just willing to learn.
Yeah, because you get smarter for sure.
Exactly. Absolutely.
What do you feel like? I know it's funny. I think a lot of players have this, and I have it too, like this kind of idea of like, I know like one day like I won't be able to play, right? Like, what do you feel like is that? Do you feel like there's going to be a moment for you when you're kind of know, or do you feel like there's just like, what will kind of inform that decision for you, do you feel like?
I feel like it depends on the person. I feel like there's two ways that you could go about it. You can go about it. One way is that you got to see how you feel. You're at a certain age and like you're not recovering correctly. You're always getting hurt. You can't compete with the younger kids anymore. Like maybe it's time for you to take a step back. You know what I'm saying? Then there's also the point where like, all right, I'm kind of like, kind of getting too old, or I mean, not old, but like I'm kind of getting up there in age. I kind of want to start a family. I kind of want to focus on other things. I want to focus on making money. For the last like 10 years, I haven't really made money or been able to build a foundation. And I feel like it's either or. Like for me, I've always said the same thing. Like by the time I'm 33, I would like to have a family. And I've already discussed this with my girlfriend and stuff like that. And like, she's totally cool with it because, she's doing her master's program now. But she always says to me, like, that doesn't mean you have to stop playing. But if you feel like, focusing on your family and that's what you want to do, then I'm okay with that as well. So I just feel like it depends on the person. Like for me, I've always said it, even when I was like younger, I always said, I feel like 34, 35 for me will be like the perfect age to like stop playing professionally, whatever the case may be. Like I said, if I have to play for this EPSL team for the next 10 years, like I'm totally okay with it, you know, because it's still playing at a high semi-pro level. And it's not interfering with my life, you know.
Yeah.
Still playing football, which is something I'm gonna love no matter how old I am. So yeah, I guess it just depends, you know.
Yeah. So with that kind of being said, like, do you feel like is the whole world still on the table for you, or are you kind of like, I'd like to play in the States?
Right now, so that's one thing that we were talking with my agent with. You know, he asked me, he's like, listen, like, there's opportunities in Finland, like, would you come? The problem for me is, like, you know, anybody, like, you would know, like, you know how it is, like, if you go to Finland, you go to Sweden, like, you go to third division, you're probably not going to make more than like $500 a month. And you know, there comes a certain age where it's not being cocky and it's not being like, oh, I'm too good for this, but it just comes a certain age where, like, you need to be able to have money to survive. And not saying that you can't survive with $500, but you need to be more realistic. Like, you need to go make money, try to save, bring back. And going to Finland, like, yeah, obviously playing in the second division or third division of Finland, sick, awesome, it's cool. But I'm 29 years old, you know, what am I going to go do in Europe for $500? You know what I'm saying? Where I can probably stay here and coach and maybe play professionally, whatever. But obviously, yeah, maybe I'll make like $700, but I'm still doing two things that I like to do, and I'm not like losing any money. But like I told them, I'm keeping the option open to go to Europe if it's worth it. If it's worth it, I'll go. If it's not worth it, then obviously, like, I'd rather just stay here and play here, and you know, I don't have to worry about anything like that.
Gotcha. All right, man. This has been a fun one. Thanks you for hopping on and sharing stories with the listeners, because I think, again, like I said before we even started, you know, like, just people can take a lot from everyone's career path, because like everyone's is different, you know. Like, I'm sure you've come across so many players that they tell you stories about kind of the way they did it, and like no two people did it the same way. So it's such a cool thing to learn from.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's true. Everyone's path is different. You know, either, I don't know, you just got to find your way. That's it, man.
Yeah, 100%. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you all those out there that are listening as well.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah.